So for those of you who've been paying attention, there has been at least a temporary ceasefire in Gaza. How long that's going to last, my guess is that it will probably only last until the end of the holiday. And what that means for the innocent people of Gaza, we don't know.
What the hell does this holiday have to do with anything for them?
I guess that they don't feel good about committing genocide over Thanksgiving holiday.
They don't celebrate Thanksgiving.
Well, no, I'm saying that we do because...
Oh, so the war profiteers... Okay, so the war profiteers need a little vacay, like right? They want to have they want to have good, consciousness about when they genocide people. I hear you.
So, for those who have been paying attention, and our wonderful guest Kyle Kemper, who is Mr. Kennedy Bus 24 himself, looking forward to having him on shortly.
Peter has so many questions.
I do. I do. I'm looking forward to it. But we do have an important topic that we have to cover at the jump. For those of you who may or may not know, Jen ran for the United States Congress in 2020 against none other than the very unbecoming ghoul herself, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She certainly brings the worst of the worst to the political arena, as we know. She just cannot unmask herself at the most inopportune times. Like in a moment when there should at least be an opportunity to breathe, because there's been over 14,000 Palestinian civilians, over 6,000 that are children.
I question the numbers. I think it's got to be way
as far as we're concerned, it's infinitely
higher.
Like
I honestly don't understand where those numbers. I just, again, it's like I do the math in my head and I'm not computing it. But okay.
So Debbie decided to issue a statement last night regarding the release of 50 hostages, not all of them.
Which, by the way, we now know the appropriate Israeli to Palestinian worth ratio. It's how many to one?
I think it was 250 Palestinian hostages were released by Israel.
For how
50
many? 50 to 250. So I'm really bad at that.
5-1. Okay, even though I wouldn't exactly agree.
Okay. So it's a 5. No, so at least we finally know. We finally know that each Israeli is worth 5 Palestinians.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to pull up a tweet of, well, it was actually a thread of tweets that were brought up. Colin, I don't know if you have, I saw that it was on hers, and I don't know if you moved it around or something. I want to make sure that this is ready to go. So I
have no idea what we're looking at, but I have a feeling I'm about to be repulsed.
Yeah.
Do we have to see her face?
I found a statement. I couldn't find a tweet thread.
No, just pull up the tweet that she put out last night. The one that that was put out at, like, I don't know.
All right, but I don't have to listen to her.
No.
Okay.
No. You're not going to do that.
I have to be way prepared for that.
The only tweet I see is this one on COVID.
No, keep going. Oh, no, you're looking at the wrong page. You got to go to her official congressional page.
This is her.
No,
I guess
they're different. That's not confusing.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to believe that there's 2 of them.
Like, who would follow those both?
Well, sure. And of course, it's always interesting when you have 300,000+ followers, and then for whatever reason, you don't have engagement past like 100 people.
And I wonder if those people are like staffers and I think a lot of the people, it's sort of like how I feel about the K-Hive. I don't think it's real. I think it's like a handful of people and a bunch of bots.
Yes. Well, I think that's
like that, and that's what I feel about like Debbie's people. And this is why I think this specifically about Debbie. And really, even if, let's say, I didn't even dislike her, her audience is much, much older. And so most of her audience is not social media people. That's what I would, and honestly, I would just question the amount of...
this is the statement that Wasserman Schultz decided to put out last night. 6 statements, and one gets worse after the other. I am deeply heartened by this initial agreement that is expected to result in the release of 50 civilian hostages, including women and children, and grateful for President Biden's tireless diplomatic efforts to free innocent victims of Hamas terror.
She cannot remove her head out of his ass.
And the idea that it was President Biden who was working so hard to get this done.
Yeah.
To be clear, while this brings a flood of relief for some, this must be the beginning of the return of all the hostages held by Hamas. This temporary cessation of, like she wrote that herself, this temporary cessation of Israel's just war will allow a much-needed surge in humanitarian aid to reach Palestinian civilians who have been used as human shields. Another lie. Another one presented right there.
I have a lot I want to say about human shields, by the way, at some point.
Didn't take long for that one. However, Israel can and must continue to eliminate terrorist capabilities in Gaza to prevent Hamas from ever perpetrating their genocidal terror.
That's in your mind.
Again.
That's in
the idea that she's using that word.
I honestly, seriously, this is what I think. When somebody even is so threatened by another group's freedom that in their mind it translates to their annihilation, you need to seek help for that, Debbie. You need to get some help.
And this is seriously. And this is the creme a la creme. I'm also thankful for POTUS that he did not heed calls for an immediate ceasefire weeks ago, as Israel could not have achieved this breakthrough had one occurred. A unilateral ceasefire only serves Hamas terrorists who broke a ceasefire on October 7th. That's another lie. And vows to do so again and again. So what you're saying is that we could have had a ceasefire at the very beginning, because as early as October 8th, the day after, the ceasefire opportunity was on the table for the exchange of hostages, but also denial of the occupation. This is the real kicker here.
I have so many problems with so many layers of this, and her wording.
The justification.
Vile, vile woman.
Knowing full well that at least 14, this is again on paper, that at least 14,000 civilians.
We're so going to
not
get
demonetized
again. This is how we're going to get
not
demonetized again.
Oh, who cares? You know, money.
Last time we called her out, we got demonetized. All right, whatever. I'm just saying.
14,000 civilians, over 6,000 children. And this is your statement? This is what you say?
Well, she only counts the Jews. She, like, in her mind, the only victims here are the Jews. She truly does believe that. And can I please, I am so angry again. Like, this is why I don't like to start like this. I'm so angry. Okay. The people that use human shields more than anybody in the entire world ever that I've ever seen is the state of Israel. They actually, what do you think a settlement is? A settlement is putting people in an illegal occupation, basically where they're surrounded by very disgruntled indigenous people. If that's not a human shield, I don't know what is. Israel also takes students, high school students, I was one, and takes us into places. And meanwhile, they do send you with armed security. So you go to places with armed security, and they have you planting trees in occupied land. So those are human shields. I was a human shield. Everybody that is a settler in places they ought not be living is a human shield for the state of Israel. So the fact that she uses that, also, I don't like that they constantly refer to Hamas as terrorists. They're militants. They're militants that are occupied.
There are militants who act as terrorists, let's be fair.
No, they're committing terrorist acts.
100%.
They're committing terrorist acts, and I will say that. But people don't pay attention to the words they use. What they call terrorism, a lot of people call resistance fighting. It's all a matter of what side of the fence you're on.
But the idea that you want to completely gloss over what has been happening to these innocent children, much less innocent civilians, the idea that you want to highlight that 50 hostages have been released. So now apparently, according to the numbers, that means about another 150 are still in captivity. So does that mean that for every 50 hostages that get released, 14,000 civilians are going to need to be mass murdered?
I don't know what their number is, but I also have the hypothetical question is, how would you have reacted if the Hamas fighters
were?
Well, if they went and hid in the hospitals in Tel Aviv. Let's say they were hiding in the hospitals in Tel Aviv, in the basement in Tel Aviv. Somehow I think your strategy would be slightly different into how to get them out, because the reality is she sees this and only cares about, the 50 people being released. She has never given second thought to the 250 people that are being exchanged for, that have been being held in captivity without due process, without anything for, some of them for years. And they are women and children.
And it's also the same thing.
Shouldn't even mention that.
It's also the same thing regarding her statement about this all started because a ceasefire was broken October 7th. Do you know how many Palestinian civilians were murdered by Israeli armed forces prior to October 7th in this year alone?
How about the ones
750
prior to any of this?
This is not like,
and that's not, and like, what about the West Bank? What they've been doing since then, and that has nothing to do with Hamas. Take your racist, bigoted, Zionist tropes elsewhere. I cannot believe people are eating this shit up from
the
her.
only thing, the one silver lining I will say as we wind down
Crazy
this topic
bitch.
is that if you look at the responses, I mean, this is an all-time ratio.
Like she cares about Palestinians.
All-time ratio.
Oh my God,
and if you go and look at the people that actually liked this, you will see a significant amount of bots. You will see a significant amount of AIPAC supporters and maybe a few not so intelligent people sprinkled in who really don't have all of the information at hand. Fair enough.
But she's gotten annihilated from this.
Correct.
Good.
And the people that have come after her have been every walk of the political spectrum, every single one. And the reason why this story
so she's getting slammed from all different people.
From every direction. Everybody has said she is the biggest ghoul in Congress. She is a heartless warmonger, which she is.
Oh, she's never. You know what? I wonder if she'd feel that way if one of her kids were enlisted. You know,
that's a good
privileged,
question.
You white, racist, privileged woman. You know what? As a Jewish person, I find her to be the most despicable representation I can ever imagine for Jewish people. And the fact that she's out there and she constantly is out there playing the Jew victim card. She's such a victim. Oh my God, they're after us. See, the problem is with her, it's like, I know she's just lying. Because she absolutely knows the truth.
Well, when you take $600,000 in campaign money from AIPAC alone, this is the type of thing you're going to get. You're going to get these standard bearer talking points. She's the third highest recipient of AIPAC money after Richie Torres and Josh Gottheimer. So it's not really that surprising that she's making these inflammatory statements.
And she's a war hawk anyway. I mean, let's be clear. She's never been a war she didn't like.
But the other thing that you have to keep in mind, which I think is very important, and this really speaks to the big issue here, and this is why it's also just sort of happenstance we're talking with Kyle Kemper and obviously somebody who's following the Kennedy campaign very closely. The big problem here is that you have somebody who is Debbie Wasserman. There's no one doesn't know that Debbie Wasserman Schultz isn't Jewish, doesn't know that she represents the Jewish culture in the worst way possible, and is absolutely causing a shitstorm that is not helping the cause. It is not helping the cause. And on top of everything else, she dragged RFK Jr. to the congressional floor. The fact that Debbie sits on the Judiciary Committee and she's not even an attorney is unbelievable.
See, that doesn't bother me.
It bothers me.
Okay, but you shouldn't have to be an attorney to be in Congress, and anybody in Congress should be able to sit on a committee.
Listen, I don't disagree with that. I don't think you have to be an attorney to be in Congress. I agree 100%. But I think to sit on certain committees.
No,
all right, well,
I disagree. Whatever. And I'm pretty elitist about stuff like that.
But there are no lines that she won't cross. And the reason why it was so important that we brought this up is because the worst part about what Debbie has done, thank goodness she's been ratioed into oblivion by people who are really paying attention. Stuart Selbowitz has sucked all the air out of the room as the man who was caught on the Upper East Side of Manhattan going up to the Hallel Euro stands and attacking Middle Easterners as basically being rapists and animals and things like that. And so he's getting all of the attention, but while he did work in the State Department as sort of somebody who was supposed to be working on Israel-Palestine for 4 years, which is amazing, he's getting all the attention, but he's not in government right now. Wasserman Schultz is in government, and she pulls the strings on a lot of these heavy-hitting issues in foreign policy. So the idea that this just happened on the exact same day could not have happened at a worse time.
I look at her and I'm just, the more she steps out, the more people remember that she's still there. Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.